that has been a hobby of mine since the age of 13, and I've been very fortunate to make it into my job 12 years ago. Before I dive in, I just want to mention that I'm a strong believer that every company should not only avoid being evil, which is the motto of Google, but actually do its utmost to do good. And this is the spirit by which I mentor my employees, and also the essence of the two stories that you will hear next, amazing discoveries. So my first story begins with this woman, Yvette Corporal-Manessis. She is an Emmy Award-winning TV producer living here in New York. She is of Greek origin. Both her parents are from Greece. And specifically, her father was born in the very, very tiny island of Erykusa in Greece, which is close to Corfu. Erykusa is so small, I've never heard of it. And in Yvette's family, there had been a story running in her family, a tradition, that a fascinating story, that her grandparents participated in saving a Jewish family during the Holocaust, during the Nazi occupation of Corfu. And Yvette was intrigued by that story and decided to write a book about it. Yeah. This is the book she wrote, When the Cypress Whispers. And it has fictional characters, but it's based on the true events of what happened on Erykusa. According to the story, there was a Jewish tailor in Corfu called Savas, and he had 3 daughters, and they had a niece, and all 5 of them were saved by the population of Erykusa, who hid them during the Nazi occupation. They hid them for an entire year. And the entire population of the island knew the secret, and at risk of death, nobody spoke. They all risked their lives to save this Jewish family, who indeed they all survived. And this is quite remarkable because the Jewish population of Corfu, numbering 2,000 before World War II, was nearly wiped out. 90% of them died out of the 2,000. And here we have a story about how 5 of them were saved by an entire island. So before the book came out, Yvette was really intrigued to find the descendants of this Jewish family and learn what happened to them. And did they have good lives? Where did they go? She really wanted to find those descendants and to reunite with them. The problem is that she didn't know all the names. So she started digging and digging and asking questions until she found only the first names of the people from the Jewish family who were rescued. It was a tailor called Savas and 3 daughters of his, Nina, Stella, and Julia, and their niece, Rosa. She only knew the first names. And she really wanted to find them. She went to MyHeritage, and this was the closest she got to finding them, and she put in those names. And she found a family with the same names, from the same area, and she was certain that this is it. But it was a false positive, because it turns out that in the Jewish population in Greece at the time, these were very common first names. So she hit a dead end. But it was a very good dead end, because it brought her to us. And I had learned of Yvette's quest, and I heard from her the story, and I thought this is an amazing, remarkable story of bravery, and it deserves to be investigated and verified and told to the world. So I decided to get involved personally. The problem was that I had very little information to go by, only first names. It was rumored that Savas had died right after the war, and the daughter Julia stayed in Greece and had no children. So I was really looking for 2 sisters, Nina and Spera, and their niece Rosa, who disappeared in 1946. My assumption was that they must have gone to Israel indeed. In Israel, there is no digitized census, and there are very few vital records. And it's, in general, very difficult to find women, because when they marry, they often change their last name. And in this case, we didn't even know their maiden name for sure. And for the young girl, Rosa, we didn't know her maiden name and her mother's maiden name. So basically, we had only these first names. So this is a detective story. And this is why genealogy has remained a hobby of mine, even though I'm managing hundreds of people. I still love it, and I still do it almost every day. And you never give up when you're a genealogist. So the first breakthrough came when I guessed, what does the name Spera come from? Because in Israel, nobody goes by that first name. So I knew that if she came to Israel, she must have changed it. And I made a guess that Spera is a nickname of Esperanza, which is the Spanish word for hope, but it is also the word hope in Ladino, which is an ancient form of Spanish that Jews have spoken throughout Europe since the Middle Ages, and also in Greece. So I guessed that she may have changed her name to Hope, which in Hebrew is Tikva. My next assumption was that if she came to Israel with her sister, that they would live next to each other. So I went to the vital records in Israel, what little exists, and I looked for Tikva and Nina living on the same street. It was a crazy, crazy hunch. And there were hundreds of people who came from Greece with those names, but there were only two living in the same street, one house from each other. And it turns out I found the right ones. Now, I'm looking for living descendants, so I was very disappointed when I found that they had no children. And that was a dead end. However, one of them, Spera, she married a person who had children, and she had a step-granddaughter, and I managed through some detective work to find her in the US, and I let Yvette call her. It turns out that she works also in the TV industry in California, and she confirmed that the Spera and Nina I found are the right ones. And the good news was that she knew who Rosa was. And that was the young girl who was hiding on Erikusa with them. And Rosa did marry, and she did have children. And she passed away only a few years previously. So I got in touch with the two sons of Rosa living in Israel. It was a very emotional phone call. And I have to say they were a bit suspicious, because they didn't know me, and they didn't know that I was on a humanitarian cause. And they actually didn't know the story of their mother in the Holocaust. They knew she was saved, but they didn't know how. So I told them I have fascinating information to share, and I visited them in their home, and they knew nothing about it, because their mother, Rosa, was traumatized in World War II, and she never spoke about the story ever. All they knew is she was saved somehow. And this was looking like a dead end, because they really wanted to believe what I was telling them, but they had no proof. And so I'm sitting there in their house until there is a eureka moment when the wife of one of those two sons suddenly remembered. She said, Rosa never spoke except one time when she did. And it's when her granddaughter did a school project on genealogy, which is something you always do at the age of 13, which is how I came to discover the world of genealogy myself at the age of 13. She said, the granddaughter, she could not refuse her, and she told her the story. So we said, let's rush and find that school project right now. So they went hunting through the house, scavenging, until they found it. And there was a page there that confirmed the entire story. And Rosa told her granddaughter that thanks to good Christians who hid her and her 3 aunts, she was saved from the Nazis, which is exactly what we knew. And finally, this closed the circle, and they burst in tears and understood that thanks to Yvette's grandparents, they are alive today. And this is one of Rosa's sons. In a very emotional interview on Israeli television on Holocaust Day, he told Yvette, Yvette, you are like a sister to me. If it were not for your family, I would not be here, and neither would my mother. And in 3 weeks, this interesting story, this fascinating story, will reach a climax in a ceremony on the island of Erikusa, where the entire population will get an award, a recognition for their bravery. And I will be there too, very thankful to have played a small part in helping this story come to light. So this is the secret of Erikusa and my first story. Of course, once everything was discovered, pictures were found in their homes, And this is a picture of Savas the tailor with his 3 daughters. It's fascinating. And my next story is about property and art. So it all started about 2 years ago when I was having breakfast at home and reading the newspaper. It may sound familiar to you, but it was an online newspaper. And there was an article there that caught my attention. It said that there was a deadline for restitution from East Germany. It turns out that, of course, there were many Jews who were killed all over Germany, but those who were in East Germany have lost all their properties, all their homes, all their factories and stores, and they never received any compensation for that because East Germany was behind the Iron Curtain until the 2 Germanys reunited. And then Germany decided that it will have a fund for compensation of €1 billion for those East Germany properties, except that Germany did not do much to find the descendants, and the descendants didn't know about the property of their ancestors. And so this entire list of 45,000 properties of East Germany remained unclaimed, and the newspaper article said that in less than a year there's the German deadline and the fund will be dismantled. And this got me quite upset to hear that there is a deadline, and because this was an online article, there was a link in it to the actual names of the victims and their properties. And when I see names, I'm like a wolf that goes into hunting mode, a friendly, happy wolf, but still a wolf. So I stepped into the list, and you know, genealogists have a strong intuition for names, just like you saw with Spera in my first story. And I was looking intuitively for rare names on the list because I thought if I can find some of these people in family trees on my heritage, then I could see who the descendants are, and I will have a tree owner to contact who would be related to the family. So I started looking with the letter A and looking for rare names, and right on the second name, the last name of Ahlfeld, with the first name of Gertrude, I thought, that's unusual. So I searched for her on my heritage, and I find her in a minute. And it's in a family tree of a user from Brazil who's 36 years old, and this was her great-grandmother, who owned 3 textile factories. So I wrote her an email doing my best so it won't seem like a Nigerian scam email. And I said, hi, I'm Gilad. You know me. You are using my heritage, and I'm the founder and CEO. I have some good news for you. Your mother was so-and-so, and grandma and great-grandma, and she owned 3 factories, and you're eligible for a very large amount of compensation, and I really don't want anything out of it. This is a mitzvah. This is a blessing that I'm doing for you. And I sent it out to see how she would react. I was very happy when she responded almost immediately, confirming all the information. So I went very excited to the office, and I have every 2 weeks an address where I speak to all employees of the company. And I told them, we have a major opportunity for a mitzvah because we can actually research all 45,000 properties and try to find as many of them as possible, because if I solved a mystery that was unsolved for 70 years in 5 minutes of work, imagine what we can do as a team. So this gave birth to our World War II property restoration or restitution project. Of course, everybody volunteered, but I had to pick a small team. We worked after hours. We took the list of 45,000. We used technology. We used also manual screening. And we managed to successfully find the owners of more than 500 of these properties. We contacted each and every one of them via phone and via email, and we didn't stop until they filed a claim. I think they didn't know what was coming, this fund. And millions and millions of dollars worth of compensation are going to be granted to them, and this makes us really proud that we were able to take part in such a project and do good. And this is only chapter 1, because this story was leaked somehow to the press, and the New York Times wrote about it. And then a New York Times senior journalist working in Paris, her name is Doreen Carvajal, you see her picture here. She wrote to me and she said, you did a fine job in Germany, can you help me in France? And I said, sure. So she had an amazing idea. If some of you have watched the movie Monuments Men, you would have known that during World War II, the Nazis also organized one of the biggest robberies in history, and they robbed and looted art and masterpieces and paintings and sculptures, and they collected them by the tens, if not hundreds of thousands. After the war, France worked really hard to reclaim those paintings, but they never tried to find the original owners. Doreen thought that if she and I work together, I will do the research and she will write about it on the New York Times. This will create a big push in France to show them that it's not difficult and that they should do more and be proactive to find the owners and give them compensation that is rightful. I took on the challenge. The problem was I was leaving on vacation to Africa the next day, and a place not well known for its internet connectivity, the desert of Namibia. So I told her I won't be able to start. However, 1 hour before my flight, I was already packed, and curiosity got the better of me. It was burning in my fingers, and I couldn't stop. So I thought, I have a spare hour, I might as well start. So I took the first name on her list, which was Mark Wolfson. And again, intuition of names. Mark Wolfson is a common name, but not for a Jewish person living in Paris in the 1940s. So in 15 minutes of work, just in time for my flight, I managed to find the heir of a very, very valuable painting of Gustave Courbet. And I managed to email Doreen about it and told her, I hope I'm right. I have to catch a flight. Tell me if I was right. And when I came back, an email waited for me. You are a rock star. And you know, just like the game of chess that I love, it was checkmate in 2 moves. And remember, I had only 15 minutes. So first I checked for Mark Wolfson in Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial site and database in Israel, and immediately found him with a picture. And this was submitted by his great niece in 1988. I was very happy. He has a relative who is alive. She could be the heir, but that was almost 30 years ago. She might be dead by now. I searched for her name, Sylvie Tafani, on Google. Bad news, too many results. It will take days to find the right one. However, intuition, I was looking for the Jewish Sylvie Tafani, and I knew that's not a Jewish name. So I applied some chutzpah, which is a Jewish word, and I searched for Google for Sylvie Tafani Juif. I'm looking for the Jewish Sylvie Tafani. And the first result that came out of Google was a very obscure website that looks like it was designed 30 years ago. The Organization for the Memory of the Jewish Children who were deported from the Maritime Alps, and Sylvie Tafani was listed on the board of directors. Intuition said, this is the same Sylvie Tafani. So I wrote Doreen, contact this organization, they'll give you her phone number, call her, and ask her if she submitted the testimony at Yad Vashem. And this was so. And the outcome, well, this is me in Namibia while all this was taking place. The Himba tribe is strongly recommended to all of you. Coming back from Namibia, success, and Sylvie Tafani is going to receive the painting. She actually requested the painting to remain in the Orsay Museum, but for a memory plaque to be added, and she will receive a compensation for the value of the painting, which is in the millions of euro. And there were also 2 other paintings that belonged to her great-uncle, and she's going to receive them as well. And these are the Touffier cousins, and they are going to get a Rubens of 400 years ago. This is priceless. And they were very angry at the French government that nobody did anything to help find them except someone from Israel who found them in no time. So the Paris Match wrote about it, and they said the Israeli Sherlock Holmes is defeating French bureaucracy at last. And this is the real painting. This is the Gustave Courbet, The Cliffs of Etretat After the Storm. This is a magnificent painting. And now we have found its rightful owner, and we can correct some of the wrong. He was murdered in Auschwitz with his wife, but at least justice will partially be done. So I continued doing this, and Doreen indeed wrote about it, and it made the cover, the front cover of the International New York Times. And we created a big, big stir in France, like we set out to do, which is also a mitzvah of its own. All this project we did not for profit, as a blessing to right all wrongs. And so that is the second and last project that I have time to share with you, because there have been many, many others, and I had a very hard time choosing these two for my talk today. And for all of you who are not yet doing family history and genealogy research, I really, really encourage you to do it. This is fantastic. The truth is wilder than any fiction, and you never know what you are going to discover. Thank you. Are we done, or we have time for questions? We have room for questions. Yes, Phyllis.
Do you also use Ancestry and Jewish Gen and Genie, or do you limit your resources to your own product, MyHeritage?
Okay, so for the Germany restitution project, we use only MyHeritage, because MyHeritage is extremely strong with Jewish family trees, and all of the people in Israel use it, and we were able to get the email addresses and the phone numbers of the users to contact them. So we had an advantage. For the French research, I use all sources available, including Genianet, which is a very good family tree website in France, and Léonore, which is the Ministry of Culture for the Legion of Honor in France, and many other databases, including Ancestry and others, and MyHeritage. So I'm not limiting myself. And the Le Figaro, Le Monde, I speak French, so I was able to read the newspapers. So it was a detective work covering the full spectrum. Yeah, last question. So the question was if there are other projects of restitution for other people. Germany was very good to actually create restitution funds. And Germany had lists of the victims, so that was easy. It is very difficult to get restitution in other countries in Europe, almost impossible. There are no organized projects that I know of, but we will be happy to help on a humanitarian basis. Okay, thank you. My email address here, in case anybody wants to contact me, you are welcome to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilad. What amazing work he does. And you know, it's that passion, I think, that binds all of us. It's why we're all here now for the Global Family Reunion. And just a reminder, at 4 o'clock, we're asking everybody to head to the main stage for a massive sing-along of We Are Family with Sister Sledge at the main stage. That's going to be a lot of fun, so we hope you're going to come out for that. Next speaker coming up in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.